Hello, Devlin here with you, and welcome to another edition of Mondo Nostalgia Radio Show. Now, if you're a casual listener, you probably don't know that I've actually taken a small break. If you're just listening to these randomly, then, welcome. I don't mind the casual listener. In fact, I love any listener I get. But for those of you who might be fanatics or super fans, and I don't think I have many of them, but I'll pat myself on the back a little bit and say I may have one or two. I'd like to think, at least. Anyhow, this is actually my first radio show in a little while. I looked back, and the last one I did was near the end of October. I did a really fun one with a group of my friends. And I actually was surprised to see on YouTube that I actually had 19 listeners for it, because I don't usually get a lot of listeners. So to see that many, I was very surprised by it. But anyhow, I really haven't had much to say. For those of you who follow me regular, you know that I've made some changes in my life, some big changes that I had to do in order to survive. And things have been going well. It's been over 7 months now, and I won't say everything's been perfect. I kind of handle things like it's like an addiction, And just to sum it up and quickly for those of you who are catching up, I suffer from depression. I've never been clinically told I have been, but I know I deal with a lot of things that fall into that category: overthinking, just very emotional, mood swings, severe depressions. And in the last 7 months, I've made some changes, and they've been going well, very well. I have had still moments where I'm blue and depressed, but I have pulled myself out of them a little bit. I've talked a little bit about things I've done. I haven't talked a lot about it, and I probably will one day, just because a lot of people have asked me. For people who follow me on Facebook, I sometimes try to keep people updated at where I'm doing, and not that I ever plan to. Trust me, when you go publicly social media about depression or dealing with this kind of stuff, you do get blacklisted a lot. I've found a lot of people have kind of just ignored me and disappeared from my life. But I was also surprised the people who have been sending me notes saying stuff like, I hope you keep talking about this because I deal with this and you're an inspiration to me. So I chose to keep doing this because of the fact that I never meant to become a poster child of this kind of stuff. But when I see people that I'm shocked to see deal with this, I'm going to continue doing it, only because of the fact that if I'm helping in any small way, then, I will continue doing that. So I decided to come back to the podcast. I never planned to really leave. In fact, there was no plan. I just thought I'd take a couple of weeks break, and then the next thing I know, that kind of went into months. And to be honest with you, I'm probably the biggest surprised that I'm actually making a comeback now. It's a brand new year. It's the first week of January. I'm actually recording this on New Year's Day. So I've got a birthday coming up tomorrow, and I just decided, you know what, I have some things to talk about. So it's time to get back to it. And I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm not going to make any big promises of what the future holds, but I'm going to try to get back to a regular pace. And for those of you who are new to this and just happen to choose this particular episode to press play on, and thank you for that, by the way, because I am a big, I don't take it lightly that, people have chosen to listen to this show. So thank you, because I know there's lots of podcasts out there, and the fact that you've just chosen to give mine a chance means the world to me. drinking some hot tea, so if you hear little breaks like this, I'll try not to sip, so I won't be one of those slurpers for you, but I have some hot tea here for you on this evening because I just felt like it. So honestly, this is literally me. Oh, I think I have some things I want to talk about. So let's kick off the year with a brand new podcast, and let's see if we can get back on track. Yeah, and it's not like I felt like I abandoned people. I have 151 episodes that people could listen to, talking about topics like fun things to topics like, serious things. So, whatever mood you're in, you can go down, look in the listings on YouTube, or if you're, I think we even say a little bit of what it's about when you go to iTunes for the free downloadable, so you can see. So I always tell people, you don't have to listen to the whole thing if something doesn't bother you. I have changed the name to Mondo Nostalgia Radio, and I hope that doesn't fool too many people, because I do talk about a lot of stuff from the past, or new stuff that has to do with the past, but I also talk about personal things. And the thing that excited me about doing this particular show is because I have a nice, I have some personal stuff I want to talk about that's, I think, a lot of people deal with, and I don't think people talk about it enough, and I'm going to do that in the first half. And then the second half, because it is the year end, I'm a movie buff, and I've put together my 10 favorite movies of 2018. In the second half, we're going to lighten things up a bit, and we're going to take a look at those 10 movies, and I'm going to rank them. Although I don't really like ranking movies. Sometimes I do. It's fun. But, ranking them is about as official as, just what I happen to like that particular day when I'm doing the list. Because honestly, 2 weeks from now, I may change my mind about a movie, but usually I'm pretty good at it. But, it might just be like, well, number 7 is number 4 now, and, 3 is number 8 now, or something like that. So, anyhow, I think it's a pretty good list. It's certainly different than, what you'd get from most critics, because I'm kind of a lighthearted critic. Even though I am trying to expand my universe, I've seen a lot of movies, but I've really been watching a lot of older movies and trying to watch a lot of rarer movies. I'm really trying to open myself up to that. But we're going to get to movies in the second half of this after the intermission. But right now I want to talk about a topic that I don't think enough people talk about. And I don't even know what I'd officially call it, but I call it the Christmas crash. It could be the holiday crash. And I think a lot of us feel this to different degrees. And what it is, and there's some of you probably listening that says, I know what this is. And I know some people call it like the January blues. They blame sunlight, they blame everything, and it all plays part in it. But I like to call it the Christmas crash, because what happens is we have this big build up to Christmas. Okay, now I don't know how big a fan of Christmas you are. Now there's some people that, they get right into it, right? November, they're already got the Christmas songs playing, other people. But whether you're decorating, whether you're listening to Christmas music, whether you're Christmas shopping, hell, even if you're going to church and you're actually, there's a lot more, not that I go to attend a church, but I notice around church time, there's a lot more going on around November and December, whether it's, like church functions, maybe there's not more extra sermons, but, the sermons change a little bit. And so what happens is we have this month or two, and, for some people, it's even more because, like me, I've actually started Christmas shopping a lot sooner. I try to do it early so I can enjoy the season, and it has worked. But when you work so hard on something, suddenly you crash. Like you crash, because after the holidays, all your functions that you planned, all the family get-togethers, all your hanging out with friends, Then you've got your Boxing Day. You've got maybe time off from work, so you've got those things. If you didn't get time off work, you have those awkward, like if Christmas, like this year, was kind of on a Tuesday, you might have to have gone in on Thursday, Friday, or some people have to work the weekends. And then you have New Year's, and then New Year's comes, and then we're taking down the decorations, we're putting away the gift wrap, we're, putting away the Christmas CDs or the MP3s, we're taking them off our list. And what happens is we start getting blue, or we start crashing. Now, some people, it's just a minor, maybe a day or two, because there's also the Christmas spirit. Because I don't personally see it a lot, but around the Christmas time, if you actually look, people seem to be friendlier and happier. Yes, there's a whole bunch of people that are, depressed during the holidays, and that's a whole different podcast, and I've talked about that in the past. I'm not saying I won't talk about it in the future, but I'll try not to go on a tangent now. But, that Christmas spirit, you go out and people are like wearing Santa hats. Some people are just saying hello to random people. People seem to be in a better spirits. And then when January comes, we now have the cold weather, but we don't have Winter Wonderland playing in our car radios or listening in our headphones. We have to deal with the fact that it's not sunny today, but we're now walking and people just seem a little bit more moodier because now they're getting their bills in. Christmas can be expensive, and some people overdo it. I'm glad to say I'm not one of those. I try not to put stuff on credit cards, but I know a lot of people do, My parents used to do that for us, and I didn't know about it at the time. I was just, a spoiled kid, and a lot of parents, try to make their kids the best Christmas they can, and sometimes you just financially can't afford it, so you put stuff on, your credit. So the bills start coming in, as I said, all of a sudden, abruptly, this happy, bright, vibrant holiday is ripped from under you, and suddenly you're like, so people crash. Some people have a couple blue days, but some people really get depressed. And I don't blame them, because I have had this happen a lot, and I always kind of get nervous because it's kind of like one of those situations where in your head you're telling yourself you're not going to crash this year, you're not going to crash, you can handle this. And the more you think about it, the more obsessed you become about it. And then the more you crash. And this year, I've actually been pretty good. Now, keep in mind, this is New Year's Day that I'm recording this, and I still have a birthday to deal with. So my crashes usually come after this. So please, cross your fingers for me. If you're a religious person, send out some prayers, Yeah, no, don't waste your prayers on that, actually, now that I think about it. There's other more important things to waste your prayers for. I'll get through it. But anyhow, right now, I think everything looks good, that I'm not going to have a major crash. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to be blue, and I've already felt it a little bit. I'll be honest, a little bit earlier today, I kind of had a lie down, and, I kind of snuggled with a teddy bear. I'm a 51-year-old man. I'm not afraid to say this, but I may have had a couple of tears. I don't know what brought it on, but I think I'm blaming the Christmas crash. But I'm fine, Trust me, if I was any real sad or depressed, I would have not been recording a podcast. I'd be stuffing snacks in my face and watching crappy TV. So the fact that I'm actually inspired to do something creative is a good thing, because that means that I've avoided a blue moment. And I'm hoping this year will be the first time that I will avoid this. Now, I did have a bit of a crash just before Christmas, which is the second year I had that. But that had nothing to do with Christmas and stuff, so I'm not kicking myself. And with the new changes I've made, I don't kick myself if I do have these moments, due to the fact that I know they're going to come, and I have to deal with them, and that's just the way I have to deal with them. So anyhow, if you are dealing with the Christmas crash or the January blues or whatever you want to talk about, I decided to let people know you're not alone. And I'm surprised that people don't talk about it. Now, I do see articles about, like vitamin C deficiency because of the sun or vitamin D. I'm not up on it, but, stuff like that. But I really think a lot of it has to do with that big holiday buildup, and then suddenly it's all gone. As we speak, I could go into my living room right now. Since the end of November, I've had the tree up, the lights were out, and my partner Mike is doing a wonderful job. I've asked if he wanted me to help, but he said no, he's good. And when this podcast is finished, I'm literally going to walk out and I'm going to see my home de-Christmased. I've already seen the tree slowly come down. I've seen all our ornaments and stuff going into boxes, but when I go out, it's gone. And I think he's trying to do it because he knows I crash. He crashes too. As I said, I think everybody does. Some people don't talk about it. Some people just don't. But I want to say it's okay to talk about. As I sip my tea again. So, some of the ways I plan to deal with it this year is this year I went into Christmas with a lot of plans that were actually really nicely sorted. I didn't have everything happen all at once. All through December I had little fun things. So it was nice that it was all, get-togethers with friends and family were all sorted out, and so that helped. I went into every Christmas thing with very low expectations. It sounds horrible to live your life with low expectations, but if you do that, then usually things exceed the low bar that you've set. Because sometimes we go in like Clark Griswold from Christmas Vacation or any of the vacation movies, and we put such pressure on this has to be the perfect Christmas, this has to be the perfect New Year's. I want everyone to have a great time when we have our little open house for the holidays. Stuff like that goes through people's minds. And if you go into it with high and then stuff starts unraveling, then you're going to crash sooner. So I went into everything with low expectations, and that is including now January. So that's why I'm hoping I don't crash. I will let you know. I won't be one of those dicks that if I do have a major crash, I won't say anything because I'm trying to be I'm going to solve your problems right now. Things that I think can help. First of all, New Year's resolutions. I've talked about this in the past. I don't like resolutions because a lot of times resolutions are eliminating things from your life. I'm going to lose weight. That's the most common one. I am going to lose weight. And usually, I hate to be a downer, but we get rid of those resolutions they're finished within a week or two. Sometimes even a few days. And of course, that's not going to help with the crash. But I like resolutions to make them more like goals, where I'm going to add stuff. I'm really going to concentrate on the podcast this year. I think I'm going to work on other things. I want to, build my relationships. I've always wanted to do a certain hobby. This year, I'm going to do it. So stuff like that is what I think is a positive thing. So I would put some small goals on. The other reason is if you put stuff like I'm going to quit smoking, or I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to stop, snacking. If it falls through, you're hard on yourself. Putting a goal on and that you didn't do it's a little less, because if say I wanted to learn how to play the ukulele. Something I've always wanted to do, but I doubt I'll ever get around to it. But if I put myself today saying, I want to learn the ukulele this year, and I don't do it, well, it's not as bad as if it was something that I wanted to take away from my life. It's something I'm adding to my life. And who knows, one day I might just pick up a ukulele and thing. So I would say, if you do make New Year's resolutions, keep them positive. I'd also say plan stuff for January, because we usually have our schedules are bombarded. I'm not saying to fill your schedule up to the point where, but a lot of times people will hibernate in January and February because sometimes the weather's not good. Force yourself to do things. I'm not saying you have to go do expensive things or make a coffee a date with a friend. Make time to call people. Spend some time with them. Have a little get together. Don't make it like a party, but if you know some people that have said, "Oh, I always wanted to see that movie," call them over, have it. Maybe do a light game night, where you're not like putting out all these luscious slacks, but grab a bag of chips and some dip and you're good to go. Just fill your calendar with some stuff that you want to do, because we get so much through the holidays and our schedules just get so busy, and we get so busy, not even just on stuff we're going to, but getting stuff ready, that January we have a lot of downtime, and I think it plays in our heads. So I'd say, get some things out there. I'm noticing there's more and more stuff on like community calendars that you can do in January, February. So look into it. If there was a restaurant you always wanted to try, definitely, try that. Invite a friend or some friends and get together for that. I see a lot of people that are like make these grand declarations about how in the new year I'm stepping away from Facebook. I'm stepping away from certain social media sites. And that's great. I support you if you're doing that. First of all, I wouldn't make a grand declaration like that. And I'm the king of grand I can't even say it now. Grand declarations. Because I'll be at Facebook. I'm not having a good day today. I'm going to post that. That will be my grand declaration. But I'm learning not to do that as much. But what I am learning is that these people that do this, it's like, I want everyone to know that I'm not going to be on Facebook anymore. And hey, if that's what makes your life better, but honestly, there's no difference if you're on Instagram and you've walked away from Facebook, or if you walked away from Instagram or Twitter and you're still on Facebook. If you want to make a grand declaration, just say you're throwing your phone right in the garbage, because honestly, you're going to be a slave to social media. No one, either way. Just saying. So I would say, if you do want to make a declaration like that, just take baby steps with it. Maybe, if you want to delete some negative people in your life, then do it. But don't make this big thing. I've talked about this many times, so I won't go into deep details. But just do it. Don't let people know that you're deleting them. There's nothing more douchey than, going to be clearing my friends list, and then putting anxiety on all these people that are like, oh, I got cut, or I didn't get cut. It's a douchey thing to do. Just do it. Most of the people won't even know you have eliminated them. But when you make those grand declarations, so avoid that kind of stuff. If there are things that give you anxiety, maybe avoid them a little bit at the beginning of the year. Make sure you're ready to deal with that kind of stuff. And even though I've just said to go out and do more things, there's also the reverse. Don't be afraid to cancel things if you just don't think your heart's in it or your anxiety level's in it. Just let the person know if you had it with somebody that we will reschedule. They might not be the biggest fan of it, but I think most people will understand in this day and age. Definitely pick up a hobby. Something you've always wanted to do. Maybe something you've always wanted to try, whether it's stamp collecting. Do people stamp collect anymore? I don't know. I always wonder that. There are still places that sell a lot of stamps, so I'm guessing people still stamp collect. Maybe you wanted to always try crocheting, or even, just anything. I always wanted to do paintball, something like that. If it's something, go out and maybe try it. There's a lot of places you can do it. Tell people what they mean to you. Start the year off with actually telling people what they mean to you. If you have an issue with a person, maybe now's the time to talk about it. I'm not saying that will lower your anxiety level, but it might help with, if you crashed and, one of the reasons is because, oh my God, my family functions are just going crazy now. I can't deal with them. Then maybe it's time to find a new way to spend time with family, or, stuff like that. So anyhow, I hope I've helped a little bit And then also just little things. Fill your life with things that make you happy. For me, it's simple things. Going to movies, watching movies, listening to music. Don't be afraid to just, you know, put some music on and lay back and relax. Read, read a book. A lot of people like to read books. Do a puzzle. Just do things things. Treat yourself. I like to go and buy myself cheap flowers at the farmer's market. A lot of people say, why do you waste your money on that? But you know what? When I walk by and I see fresh flowers there, like I bought flowers on Christmas Eve, and these carnations, they're like a mixed group of flowers, have lasted so long. I'm actually going to have these beautiful flowers on my birthday, which is way over a week. And it's going to make me smile. Yeah, no, I'm not sitting smelling them for 24 hours a day, but I do. Sometimes I like to just relax, put on some incense, and just relax. Anyhow, the crash is inevitable, but there are ways that you can deal with it. And I think the hibernation thing works a little bit, but I actually think the hibernation thing can play with your brain a bit. So I would say do like a nice mix. Hibernate one day, then make time to go visit a friend. Or, hibernate for a couple days and then go and, go to Ottawa Street. Okay, that's very Hamilton-centric. But go to a place that you've always wanted to go, or, maybe something that you did go to do Christmas shopping, now go to it for fun, for something for yourself. Like, well, that was a fun shop. I got some great gifts there, but now I'm going to go to a local shop, and who knows, maybe I'll buy something for myself. And who knows, even if you don't, it's therapeutic to just look around. So I don't think the hibernation thing works totally, but I'm not saying it doesn't not work either. I'm just saying I think there's a balance. Because I think what happens is people get into that hibernation phase and avoid people at all costs. And then it's harder when the spring comes to actually start getting motivated again. And then they're dealing with this one little Christmas crash that is now turned into like a depression because you have wrapped your home around you and made it such a safe haven that you're forgetting that life is really about connecting with people and getting out there and touching lives and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm a strong believer on that. Anyhow, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm just telling you the stuff that sometimes helps for me, and I hope that it's helped you and that we can avoid these crashes together, because I'd rather have a little blueness in my life than have a full-blown crash. And so far, so good, so we'll see how well it goes. Anyhow, we're going to take a little bit of intermission, and then when I come back, I'm going to take a look at my favorite movies of 2018. I love talking movies. I think I've talked about a lot of these movies already in my past, but I'm condensing them all. These are my favorite movies. We'll talk about that right after the break.
Hot chocolate with a magical flavor you won't be able to resist. At our refreshment stand now.
Welcome back, and if you just tuned in, you're listening to Devlin's Mondo Nostalgia Radio. It's actually nice doing this again. As I said, I've taken a break, and feels real good. It's like slipping into an old pair of jeans that just fit perfectly on you. And okay, that's a weird analogy, but you know what I mean. It's just slipping into something comfortable again, because I didn't realize how much I missed it until I'm actually sitting here talking, which I don't know why. I'm surprised because I love to talk. Anyhow, I am a movie fan. Always have been ever since I was a little boy when my dad would take me to the movies every Sunday afternoon. I don't get out to see as many movies as I would like, but I probably see more movies than the casual viewer. And definitely I have enough for a top 10. And I have a lot of ones that didn't make the list. So I probably see, you know, 25 to 30 movies a year. I'm actually hoping I'll see a lot more this year, but we will see. We'll play it by ear. And every year I like to kind of share some of my favorite movies. I've been reviewing a lot of movies. If you are new to this show, if you look some of the past, I've reviewed older movies. I've reviewed like current movies at the time. So they're older movies now. And you may have seen a lot of reviews for some of these. Some. It was an okay year for movies in 2018. I did like a lot of them. I didn't. There were some I loved, but not uber loved. Like, you know, I remember every year there seems to be a movie I get really obsessed over, and this year I don't think I had a major obsession like that, but of course 2017 was the year of Baby Driver, and I really became obsessed with that movie. And but this year I didn't have a movie like that. There was a lot of really good ones I enjoyed, but you know, nothing that I became obsessed over. But that being said, I don't want to downplay my top 10. There's some honorable mentions that just missed the top 10 that I want to say. Get those out of the way. Christopher Robin. I have to bring this movie up because I can't remember if I talked about this movie. This movie devastated me in a weird way. People have always said, you remind me of Winnie the Pooh. And I took that as a compliment, but I took it as the big cuddly bear. I never really paid much attention to the Pooh philosophy. I knew Winnie the Pooh. I grew up with him. You know, I think when I was younger, you know, people read the books to me, and I definitely saw the Disney stuff. But this was the first time a movie kind of punched me in the face in a sweet, sweet way. And I have to, it just missed out being in the top 10. And I have to kind of, you know, give it a nod because of the fact that, you know, it is a good movie. I really like this movie. In fact, I just saw Mary Poppins Returns, which is not on this list. I wasn't the biggest fan. I liked some of it. I didn't like all of it. But they almost try to do the same thing. And I think Christopher Robin succeeds where Mary Poppins Returns failed. And so that's why I'm giving this one a little bit of an honorable mention because it is really, really that good. And then what else do we have here? I want to give an honorable mention to a movie called Leave No Trace. This was a wonderful movie I saw, and I just want to talk about it. It stars Ben Foster, and I never knew anything about this movie. And one of the friends I hang out with, we go to this little movie theater, and sometimes we just jump into the theater not knowing anything about a movie. And we wind up just absolutely being blown away by it. This movie did get some critical acclaim, but it got no play anywhere. It's called Leave No Trace, and it's basically a story about a father who raises his daughter to live in the wilderness kind of thing. And it's such an amazing, amazing movie that I have to give it some love. I have to, you know, give it the love it deserves because I think it's just that good. I have to also give a shout out to the name of the daughter. Sorry, I'm all over the place here. Thomasin McKenzie. She's a newcomer in this movie. And as I said, it's about a soldier who comes back from the Iraq War and suffers from PTSD. And he raises his daughter in the forest until social workers find them and try to get them back into the real world. It's a wonderful movie, and if you get a chance to check it out, definitely try it. I also want to give a shout out to Overlord. This was a movie that almost made my list, and it's a weird movie because it kind of starts off as a World War II movie, and it takes itself real serious. By the end of it, it's kind of a zombie horror movie, but not really even zombies, but it's a creepy little thing. But I was invested all the way through this movie and couldn't just let it go. It was a really good movie, so I wanted to give those as honorable mentions of things that didn't make my list. Also, I'm going to give a shout out to Jurassic World 2 because I think there was a backlash for this movie. I like that it took some creative chances, and a lot of people didn't like those creative chances, but I did, so I am going to give it a honorable mention. Two movies I also will add on the honorable mention movies because they're movies that kind of were, I liked them better than I thought I would. Hereditary was, there weren't a lot of horror movies. I don't think there's any horror movies on my top 10 this year. And Hereditary was a movie that I actually thought would have made my top 10 when I was watching it because it was so engrossing. It was the story of this family and how tragedies affect a family. And I think I had to leave it off the list because of the fact that it has an ending that has kind of polarized fans of horror movies. Some people love the ending. Some people didn't love it as much. And I fall into that category. It takes such a U-turn that it kind of left me jarred. But, like, I'm talking the first two halves of this movie won me over in such a big way that it was sad that I'm not even saying the movie totally unraveled for me as a movie. It's just it took a huge leap that I wasn't ready to go to because it's such a slow, beautifully paced movie. And then it took some real chances. And if you don't fall for those chances, it's very hard for you to go into this movie. And then a little movie I want to give a shout out to, and I'm going to lose all credibility as a film reviewer because people hated this movie, but I actually got to see it finally, and it was actually not as bad as I thought. Robin Hood, the new one with Taron Egerton and Jamie Foxx. I actually thought this was a fun popcorn movie. I understand why people have problems with it, but I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. It's fun. I had a good time with this movie, and if you're looking for just something that you can leave your brain at the door, I highly recommend Robin Hood. You might want to wait till it's streaming or you don't have to pay for it, but I thought it was fun. Yeah, I get the problems people had with it, but I think it was kind of a fun take. Is it the best Robin Hood movie? No. Oh, hell no. I think Kevin Costner's, Errol Flynn's, even the Disney one are far superior films. But if you're looking for something a little fun, just something to stuff your face with popcorn as you watch it, you can't do worse than this. I'm not going to take too much time on disappointing films. Films that I kind of felt disappointed by this year were Incredibles 2. I think after 14-year hiatus, I loved the original one very well. I just think Pixar could have came up with something better. I know a lot of people still like this movie a lot, and that's great, but I just did not find the love. I felt the family was separated through it, which was one of the strong bits of the first one, is how they all came together as a family and fought, and I just felt that they were separated a lot through this. Also very disappointed in Deadpool 2. I just thought it was more of the same. They retread the same things. I know a lot of people love it, and that's great if you do. I was not one of them. And the biggest disappointment of the year, I'll hit on Mary Poppins Returns. It's not the biggest disappointment, but I just saw it, and I was disappointed. I wasn't looking forward to this movie. I didn't think it was needed, but they kind of played it like a sequel, like Christopher Robin did, and it is a sequel. But in some ways, I felt it too much of a reboot. Some of the musical numbers are phenomenal. I will give it that. But this plays too much like a reboot, and it We don't need a reboot to Mary Poppins. I wish they kind of took some chances on this one and made it a full-on sequel instead of finding a way to make it a sequel but also rebooting it. Like to the point where the songs like, oh, this is their Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious song. This is their Spoonful of Sugar song. This is their Chim Chimmery. It's like they just used the same template, and that was disappointing. I don't like putting it down because this movie had a lot of heart. You can tell everybody involved definitely cared about what they were doing. And Emily Blunt, it was incredible as Mary Poppins. She did a great job. She didn't try to recreate Julie Andrews, but there was enough of the essence there to win me over. Lin-Manuel, I always get this. Lin-Manuel Miranda was great to see. He's an incredible performer. Not needed in this movie at all. The Dick Van Dyke character, I can get where they get, but as I said, it was like a reboot, so I needed that character again. But honestly, he's not needed in this movie at all. But he's good. I'm not saying he shouldn't be in it because he was good. And everybody had the heart. My number one most disappointing movie of the year was Halloween. I know a lot of people like this movie. I did not. I wanted to talk about it in a full review because I had so many issues with this movie. It was one of my most anticipated movies, and it was such a letdown to me that I just, for me, the sequels will now be Halloween 2 and then Halloween H2O. And then the third one, which has nothing to do with Michael Myers. I just thought it was great to see Jamie Lee Curtis back, but I don't. When I came out of a movie, for those of you who know me, or if you don't, I absolutely hate the Rob Zombie remake of Halloween. Like, hate it. To the point where I think it should be taught in schools to show you how not to remake a film. But when I came out from the new Halloween and I said that I actually think Rob Zombie understood the Halloween lore more than the people who made the new Halloween, that tells me something. So Halloween wins for my, I don't want to say worst movie of the year, but I guess that's what it is. Anyhow, let's stop talking about the bad stuff and let's go into my 10 favorites. Now, I live in a small town, Stony Creek, Ontario. It's right near Hamilton, Ontario. We don't get a lot of the movies until like from 2017, a lot of the Oscar nominees, we don't get here until 2018. So there's at least 2 movies that are technically 2017 movies, but I count them because they were this year for me. So bear with me on that. Coming in at number 10 is Aquaman. I just saw this movie. And yes, I know there's going to be some people saying, oh, you're a big DC fan. You're right. I've loved all the DC movies, and I think Batman vs. Superman is one of the most sadly underappreciated movies. I think it's a movie that deserved it, but I have actually loved this world. Aquaman, to me, is the first movie, maybe Wonder Woman a little bit, to kind of avoid really bringing in any of the other DC properties in. The only thing we know is that Jason Momoa played Aquaman in Justice League, and he was seen in Batman vs. Superman, so we know it's part of the universe, but they kind of just don't deal with that. And I think this is how they should continue making these movies. I'm still not holding out hope that we will see another Henry Cavill Superman or a Ben Affleck Batman, but if they do continue, because we know we have Wonder Woman 84 or whatever it's called coming out. So I'm hoping this is the new set piece, that we worry about them and then we'll cross over things in specialty movies. I honestly think they're just going to wipe it clean eventually. But as long as we have movies like Aquaman and Wonder Woman, they might continue this universe. Aquaman's doing well at the box office. It's fun. It feels like a Marvel movie, but not really. I loved every Marvel movie. I haven't had a clinker yet in the bunch. Even my lowest rated Marvel movie, which I believe would be Ant-Man, the first one, is still a movie I enjoy. So Marvel has done an incredible job, but I'm getting a little bored with Marvel. I just feel their formula, even when they change it up a bit, they still have a formula, and it feels like that. I find that the DC universe, even having stumbles and falls, still is trying to make art as well. Aquaman is just a bug nuts fun movie. It's colorful, it's big, and for a fan of Aquaman who has had to put up with him being the butt of jokes for years, it is so good to see Aquaman kicking ass at the box office and people actually coming out saying, I really enjoyed it. Aquaman is not just a popcorn movie, it has some heart in it and some of the best action sequences that I saw in theaters this year. Aquaman, number 10. Coming in at number 9 is Ready Player One. I really like this movie a lot. I know people that some liked it and some didn't like it. I really like this. To me, this was the return of Steven Spielberg making movies that he used to make in the 80s. Maybe, in the 90s too, because Jurassic Park. But this was a fun movie. He thought of Steven Spielberg a lot when he was the writer, wrote this book. So when he learned that Steven Spielberg was actually interested in directing it, he went nuts. I think he did a great job with it. It did okay financially, but I think a lot of people avoided it, and it's too bad. It basically is about a boy who gets caught up in a world of virtual reality. It's a future world where people literally get lost. I see it something could happen down the way. And Steven Spielberg, I think in my review of this, I said I probably would have been even more preachy, but he doesn't go that way. He basically talks about how, virtual reality is something that's going to happen, but it could be good too. But we should use it sparingly. But it's a fun romp again. There's like a little bit of a mystery as they're looking for the keys. And it's a really, really great time at the movies. So I loved it. Number 8 is A Star is Born. Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. A movie that's been remade so many times. I just recently saw the Barbra Streisand and Chris Christopherson version, and I really liked it. And when I watched this one, I knew, and I think I actually read in the credits, this was the version he was inspired by. Bradley Cooper does a great job directing, and I really think he's the standout performance. And I'm not trying to put down Lady Gaga. She's amazing in this. A woman who's so flamboyant and over the top to play such a vulnerable character. It's an amazing performance. But what I think Bradley Cooper's performance is stronger. I think the character has more layers and the character is more developed. And I think Bradley is going to do well when Oscar nominations come. I really hope he does get an acting nod as well as a directing nod, because it could be easy to just give him the director and that's it. But I really think his performance is stronger than Lady Gaga, but Lady Gaga's is really strong. But what works best is when they're together. The chemistry between these two is phenomenal. The music is also really great. Number 7 is a movie that is one of those crossover movies, Call Me By Your Name. It stars Timothy Chalamet and Armie Hammer. And this movie I saw at the beginning of last year, and it just blew me away. It is such a beautiful film of the coming age. Now, there was another movie. Now, I'm not even saying this is a gay coming of age movie, although there's obviously gay overtones. Basically, just in a nutshell, it's about a young boy who starts realizing he may have feelings for this older man. It actually deals with some really, issues that some people might have troubles with, but I think it's handled very well. And it is kind of a gay movie, but there's nothing in this movie that says that these two couldn't be bisexual. It's a great will they or won't they kind of feel, beautiful locales, a really wonderful script. Now, another movie came out this year that I also liked, Love, Simon, which I also was a movie I really enjoyed. Probably another one I could have easily put on my honorable mentions. I'm noticing it showing up on a lot of people's top 10 lists. I noticed a lot of them are straight people, though. And as much as I loved Love, Simon, I had some issues about it, just being a little too Hollywood. And it was enough that I had to give this one a little bit more, because I think this one is closer to what teen romance is. It's messy. It's not perfect. It's heartbreaking and exhilarating at the same time. And so I gave this the honor. If you've never seen it, Call Me By Your Name. Number 7, wonderful performances. Timothée Chalamet deserved the Oscar nomination that he got, and Armie Hammer, it was his best work I have ever seen him do in this. Number 6 is a documentary, which doesn't happen too often. Won't You Be My Neighbor, the Mr. Rogers documentary. I just got this for Christmas, and I watched it on, I think, Boxing Day, and I actually think this movie not only entertained me, but actually started making me think of how I want to live my life differently. And any movie, whether it's a documentary or whether it's anything, and I actually have movies that have changed my life. This would be one of them. Won't You Be My Neighbor is a wonderful documentary that shows Fred Rogers from, his early days where he was thinking about becoming a pastor and then wound up in children's television. And it teaches a lot about the philosophies that he learned, that he brought to that show. And it also this is not one of those movies that digs, they don't find scandal in Mr. Rogers' life, but I was surprised how poignant they showed that even though he knew how to deal with people and issues, that a lot of the times while dealing with this, he was dealing with a lot of stuff and found a voice in the puppets that he used and found a voice in the show itself. And those moments were actually the ones that were quite interesting because it wasn't just this. Like, when you watch it, it's a feel-good film. I will warn you that, and that's not a spoiler. If you want to feel good, this is your movie. I won't give away the ending because there's a moment that they do in the ending that is just beautiful. And it's probably that and the looking at some of the things that Mr. Rogers himself dealt with that prop this to be my number 6 movie. My number 5 movie is pretty funny because I did not want this movie at all. I did not want this movie. Don't give me this movie. It's Mamma Mia 2, Here We Go Again. I loved the first Mamma Mia. I thought it was just a fun little romp, great music, great cast. And when they announced the second one, it was totally, to me, a cash grab. Yeah, there were a couple of ABBA songs they didn't use, but I didn't want to see it. And when I went to the theater, I decided to go. I'm a big ABBA fan. I wanted to see what they did. And the trailers got me interested because I don't want to give away this movie, but there was things in the trailers that made me think something. I had suspicions on something, and I wanted to go. While I was watching this movie, I would say I have always had Mamma Mia at about a 4.5. And while I was watching this movie, I was thoroughly entertained, mostly by Lily James's performance in flashbacks of the young Meryl Streep. In fact, all the people they cast as the younger versions of the character were incredible. In fact, I could actually see why Lily James had these wayward affairs with these 3 young guys, because they cast such good-looking, charismatic young actors who could act. And I being a gay man, I found myself not only crushing on these young guys myself, but on Lily James. I was like, this is somebody I want to hang out with. It was an infectious thing. So all through the movie, I was thinking, okay, this is fun. This is running about a 4. So they actually blew my mind. It's not till the last 20 minutes, and don't worry, I'm not giving any spoilers, but the last 20 minutes and the last 2 major songs they do actually put this movie up to 4.5, exactly like the first one. And there are a lot of things in this movie that I actually think enhance the first movie. When I came out of this, I actually went to see it in theaters again. It was so fun. And I was just tears of joy all through viewing this. And I just, even knowing what was coming up the second time I saw it, I was in love with the fact that I knew it was coming up. And it just put me in such a good place. The last 20 minutes moved this up to about 4.5. And I think if you're looking for an absolute fun, magical night and just want to feel good, get some friends together and put both Mamma Mias on. Because, yes, you will hear a couple of repeated songs, but such an infectious movie. This is probably the biggest surprise in my top 5 for me, like just seeing that was at number 5. Coming in at number 4 is another crossover from 2017. It was the Best Picture winner at the Oscars, which mind blew me. Shape of Water. Guillermo del Toro's directing movie that is just a phenomenal movie. I'm blown away that the Academy gave this one because it is kind of a science fiction-y type movie, and that doesn't happen too often. You might get a nomination, but the fact that it won the whole thing. This is sci-fi meets romance, and I know a lot of people have some issues with this movie, and I get it. Even at the theater, I saw some older people that were a little uncomfortable with some of the sequences in it. I absolutely love this movie. I think it works sci-fi. I think it works as a romance. I did not know what to expect with this film. The less you know about it, the better it is. All the performances were first rate. I loved seeing that this movie was actually filmed in my hometown of Hamilton. And I actually didn't know that until I was halfway through the movie and I realized I'm looking at Hamilton City Hall. Then I started noticing other places and it was just kind of nice. But that's not why it's making 4. This is a really awesome film. It's a groundbreaking film and I think it's one we will talk about for a long, long time. Coming in at number 3, Avengers Infinity War. Yep. You always know I have blockbusters up near the top because I'm a blockbuster guy, even though I do like the indies. I like this movie a lot. I had some... As I said, I've loved all the Marvel movies. And this year, there was a couple of them, and I only just kind of liked those ones. And yes, one of those is Black Panther. The other being Ant-Man and the Wasp. I liked those movies, but I didn't love them as much as other people did. I understand Black Panther's importance, and I get that, but I actually thought it was kind of not the greatest film. And because of that, it's not on my list. It wasn't on my honorable mentions. It's not a movie I didn't dislike, and I look forward to seeing it again, but it just wasn't for me. But Avengers Infinity War was, because we have been building to this right since the first movie, Iron Man, when we got to fall in love with all these characters. And the fact that they put together a movie where all of them come together and then they deal with a villain, and it's really the villain that made this movie. It was great seeing interactions with all the other, characters with each other, Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy, Tony Stark and like Doctor Strange and Spider-Man. But it was really Josh Brolin's portrayal of Thanos who really brought this movie together, because Thanos' character was not only evil, but he actually had a good soul. Like, not a good soul, but he was a well-developed character, and it was one of those cases of what he wants to do is bad, but I understand why it might be taken the wrong way too. Like, I can see why he wants to do it, and it's not necessarily in a malice sort of way. It's not like the Joker or something trying to do something just to be chaotic. He actually thinks what he's doing is a good thing. Much like one thing I will say about Black Panther, the villain in that, Killmonger, also was a character who had pretty good ideas, but just, didn't set them out the same way. Anyhow, I did have some pacing issues with Infinity War, but I give it no problems for that due to the fact that they just had so many characters to work with, and, they did their best, but this movie has some pacing issues which probably put it a little lower than it should have been. I think this is going to be one of the toughest following acts to do, because quite honestly, I just think that this is going to be a hard one to follow up, and I look forward to seeing what they do, and you will definitely see a review here once I see it. I'm not going to be loved for this choice, but I go by my heart when I watch movies. So number 2 is Solo, a Star Wars story. This movie had a lot of troubles during its production. They were well form, so I won't go into it too much. I think the movie we got was actually pretty spectacular, and actually, after having so much trouble, which for those of you who might be regulars know I had problems with Star Wars The Last Jedi. I did a full episode talking about it and the problems I had with it. And it actually put me off Star Wars for a bit. So to get this one a couple months later, I was not wanting a Solo movie. I didn't care about the character that much. I loved the character in the or other movies I saw him in, but I didn't care about it. And the fact I actually fell in love with this movie. One of the few movies I've ever seen twice in, like, I saw it on the one day, and then the next day I went with another friend and said, hey, you want to go see Solo? I wanted to see it that quickly again. I collected a lot of the toys. This kind of gave me an energy back to Star Wars because it reminded me a lot of the original trilogy. It's a fun movie. It's got a lot of heart. Alden Ehrenreich does an amazing job as Han Solo. He doesn't do a Harrison Ford impression, though there are moments that you can look at him and go, that's Han Solo right there. And his chemistry with Donald Glover and Woody Harrelson and all the other cast members are really good, especially with Chewie. There's a new actor playing Chewie, and you never know it, but they really have a bond, and we really get to see their origin story, and that was a success. I'm sad that this movie didn't do as well as it could have, and I think a lot of that was people just turned off because of Last Jedi. I understand some of the problems people have with it because some people just don't want to see origin stories where, you know, it's written in their mind and then suddenly a movie makes it canon as to how it is. I think they handled it really well. I think it's a really great thing, and I think Alden Ehrenreich was a perfect Han Solo choice. He wasn't my first choice when they talked, but I give them credit for finding him. So number 2 is Solo. It was hard to find a number 1 film, but this movie made me feel so good and emotional. I decided it had to be my number 1. It's Bohemian Rhapsody. Rami Malek stars as Freddie Mercury in this movie about the band Queen. It was written by Bryan Singer and directed, he might have wrote some of it, but basically Bryan Singer's been having some of the same problems with, that he brought on himself. But he's been kind of ostracized from Hollywood a little bit, and maybe not so much as other people have been, but there was a lot of talk whether he was even going to get a director's cut on it because somebody took over at the last minute. But Bryan Singer does get the director cut because of the fact that most of the movie is his. And, I'd like to see Bryan Singer's career continue, but if it is a swan song because of all the stuff he went through, this is a great movie to end it on. But taking the controversy away from it, I know a lot of people had some problems with Bohemian Rhapsody because they wanted this to be a dark, investigative look into Freddie Mercury's dark side, and they only scratched the surface on it. But that's what I think this movie succeeds, because I always loved Queen, and when Freddie Mercury finally came out saying he had AIDS, I actually remember the day when I heard it, and he literally died, I want to say, within 48 hours. So he kept this hidden from the public. Right in the movie, he says he doesn't want to be the poster child of AIDS. So when he came out with it, and then he died so soon after, people were just wrapping their heads around it. And then all of a sudden, he was dead. And the fact that this movie kind of deals with it in that same way, and decided, instead of it being a depressing look at his life, turned it into a musical celebration, I think the movie should be commended by that, because they don't shy away from those issues. I did have some little problems with not pacing, but the way things happened. I've seen things that did not really happen the way they did, but they may have changed it. But I expect that with biographies because, You're always looking for ways to make the life even more. There were a couple of song sequences that were out of sync, as in, like, they were. I knew Queen enough that, maybe Freddie's current look on this time was definitely years after a song was written. But it didn't put me out of the movie. It just kind of made me, oh, that's out of sequence. But it didn't ever take away from the movie. The greatest part I got from this, and Rami Malek is an amazing performer, and I hope he does get an Oscar nomination for this. But what this movie did for me is make me realize the importance of Queen as a group. It's not just Freddie Mercury's movie. This movie is about Queen. Yes, Freddie is more front and center, but seeing them develop songs, I have more respect for Queen as a unit, where before I'll be honest, was thinking, well, Freddie Mercury is the greatest frontman in a group ever. This one actually gave me love for the whole band and made me realize, okay, the whole group worked on songs, and so to me, coming out of that, this movie just is absolutely amazing. It's probably too late for you to catch on the big screen. It is worthy of that, and of course the Queen music is phenomenal and sounded great pumping out of those speakers. But just for the concert sequences alone, the big screen was definitely the place to see it. That being said, I will own this on Blu-ray, and I'm sure a lot of other people will. It's my #1 movie of 2018. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope I interested you in a couple of movies that you might have been on the fence about or maybe didn't even know about. By all means, if you disagree with some of my choices, let me know. I respect your decision as well as I hope you respect mine, even if it was a movie that you didn't agree with. Anyhow, it was really great getting back to the Mondo Nostalgia radio show. If you don't know, I also do a Facebook page that I update things pretty much every day, which has music videos on it, music videos, recipes, old shorts, up-to-date news about nostalgia, like really great stuff, locally, especially in the Hamilton area, but also, like, I hate to say it, but celebrity deaths, celebrities, new projects and stuff like that. Check that out, and definitely, press like on it and find out. It's become a fun page that people like to start their day with. And then Damien and Devlin's show, we review movies, older movies usually, but, all peaks, and it's 2 generations. He's a young guy, and then I'm the old guy, and we watch movies together and then give our own take. We've just finished up season 2, but are going to start season 3 up in February, and so there you go. Lots of ways you can find me, and I'm going to be back on the podcast. I took my break. I'm going to try to find things to talk about. I'm going to try to have some people on the show, some guests. Thank you for listening, pressing play, and I hope 2019 is a wonderful year for you, and I hope you join me for some of my projects that I do. I can't wait to talk to you next week. Take care.